Perfect score.
If you didn't like archery, if you didn't care about it, you probably wouldn't feel as excited or as nervous as you do.
In reality, it is a lot more of a sensitive balance.
Please, can you allow yourself to be good?
My plan is still to shoot the best arrows I can all the time.
You will be even more ready, I promise.
So yeah, Josh, you want to start asking about compound stabilizer setup?
Yeah, so jumping into it, Stash, what is your which stabilizer line are you using? What are your lengths? How much weight do you use on each stabilizer? And what angle and how do you mount your back bar?
I'll just go from the beginning. I'm using Beast stabilizers with tungsten powder. I have a 30-inch in front with 16 ounces and 10-inch Beast tungsten powder. I believe currently I'm at around 29 ounces. So give it or take, I have 1:2 ratio. I'm also running 10 degrees angle quick disconnect on front and a normal sidebar in the back. I have around 10 degrees downward and 10 degrees to the left for the sidebar.
Okay, nice. And then when you're setting up stabilizers for a new bow or you're kind of retesting things, what are you looking for in the feel of the stabilizers that you know things are set up well for you?
When you're shooting with a specific bow maker with different models, every model would have a reference of a different setup. Of course, your basic setup will be what you have. So I would go from there, but then you will see how that bow is jumping out of your hand. How would you like it to perform? Would you like to, I don't know, different grips and so on? Me personally, I like to have it like when I shoot my arrow that it stays how it is, just slightly forward, like that it jumps forward a bit.
One question that we get a lot that's challenging for me to answer as someone who has not competed in compound a lot,
Okay,
is the topic of choosing the lengths of your front rod and your side rod. One of the things that we've seen is we tend to just sell an absurd amount of 30-inch bars to compound archers, and there seems to be less variety compared to the recurve side, but we are curious if you have theories of how to choose the right length and why a lot of people tend to go to a 30. Why should you go shorter or longer? What are your thoughts?
well, don't overjudge yourself. Of course, a 33 or 36 or whatever, like let's say longer stabilizer would theoretically mean that it's more stable, just because it gives you a longer stability in the atmosphere. But don't overjudge yourself, because that means that you would need to hold more weight, or it would have a brace of impact would be much longer on that thing than with a shorter one. So, like, I believe that now 30 is kind of universal thing for everyone. If you're starting at archery, I would suggest, for compound, of course, that you will not miss that much by a 30-inch long length of the front stabilizer. For the backwards, me personally, I have 10. Why? Because also for field archery, when you're shooting uphill or downhill, you are bending over and you cannot touch yourself with the stabilizer. We have, or I have, smaller. And that's about it.
So usually though, on the back bar, we're thinking short lengths, unless you're mounting it to like the front of the riser.
Yeah,
then
of
maybe
course,
you need a
yeah.
longer rod. But from the back, 10 or 12 is usually kind of in line with what we see. with what people use and purchase.
Yeah.
And then, 30 is very good middle of the road for most size of people. Although maybe in the future, we'll be offering some more subtler length differences that don't require you to jump all the way to a 33 or all the way down to a 27. Maybe that gives people more nuance and we see a little more data kind of come out of that area.
For sure. What about your process for setting your back bar's position and angle once you've got your length and weights figured out?
So when I have my lengths, not the weights, figured out, I give it a try to put that 1-to-2 ratio, and then set up my rear stabilizer left and right with the side picture up in front, and then just how heavy and how much the bow is jumping out of my hand after shot. With that, I will go upward and downward.
You're starting with left and right, like you picked
Yes.
out, and you say, okay, in general, because I'm mounting this low on the back of the riser, I had a 10-inch bar. Perfect. Okay, you got
Sure.
your 10-inch bar. Then you say, I'm going to put some amount of weight to get this thing kind of ballpark balanced so that this thing isn't tipping like crazy. And then now you're maybe going out first to counteract the sight and make sure this thing's neutral left and right.
Yes.
And then you can start to play a little bit with the subtlety of, kind of like with recurve, start level and then play with the up and down a little bit until you kind of find that nice tipping point or that nice jump or the lower center of gravity that you like. So kind of maybe in that order, you start to kind of figure out the bigger parts first.
Yeah. That also affects, for example, I don't know, like every archer has its own pressure point in the grip. So that affects, and also how do you want to feel after shot, or that the bow gives you back the information. So you need what you did wrong, or what you need to pay attention for the further shots, how much it jumps off your bow, like off your hand.
How do you choose whether to mount your back bar off of the front of the bow where the long rod is versus the back?
I tried it both, and for me personally, I like it more down backwards, just because it feels more steadier to me. But mounting it up on top, like I believe that when you are mounting it with your center stabilizer, that your side picture can be a bit quicker, or you need to put a lot of more weights on it, that you calm it down to the same amount as if you have it like backwards. Then it's just personal preference from then on.
I imagine too that if trying to get that maybe weight in a similar position relative to the rest of the bow, if you start at the back of the riser and you have a shorter rod, that rod is stiffer to start out.
And that's where I was thinking about the stability. Are you slowing down the movement just by stiffening the system?
Yeah.
And you're buying a little bit of stability from not using a longer back bar that has double the amount of weight that your long rod does.
Mm-hmm.
Flexing at 15 inches versus at 10 inches, right? You're cutting 50% of that length out. You're getting way more effective stiffness. Speaking of back bars, have you tried the V-bar trend of putting 2 back bars on a compound? And did you like it or no?
I did back as a kid. I did, but then I didn't anymore. It was just, I was trying it because I had a longer sidebar and it was bumping into me for field archery. So just because I put it in like a V-bar and try to shot it in that way, that when I was bending over, that my bar would go further away from me. It will not bump me. Then when I was shooting more and more, I realized that it was indoors. I just kind of noticed that my side picture is way more better with just only one rod. That's about it. I cannot tell you any more here.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It just didn't do a lot for you. You haven't felt a need to go back to it.
No.
On the subject of torquing the bow or not, when you set up your balance, are you trying to move your back bar out enough to the left that you have to torque the bow to keep your bubble level,
No.
so you're always bringing an input, or you go neutral?
No, neutral. All the time.
You go neutral.
Or, I don't know, half a bubble.
Do you make any tweaks to your bow or equipment if you know an event is going to be very windy? Or do you make any last minute changes to your equipment if things are very windy when you're at a major event?
I did sometimes, but in the end, it was just like, it didn't give such an effect that it would be paying off. For example, I don't know, I was shooting a wind bar up in front with so many weights, 20-inch wind bar and a stack of pile of weights. And guess what? We weren't practicing before in that, so it wasn't okay.
Yeah.
So now, in these days, no. And also on the field, I'm noticing, like back in the days, everyone was changing if there was a wind coming up, smaller stabilizer. Now, not so much anymore.
So yeah, change is tricky in general. If you haven't practiced with it, if you're not that confident, and then if you're trying to change in the middle of a tournament. So in general, you and probably a lot of other people are finding that unless you're really, really sure that this is going to give you a huge advantage.
I'm not saying that it's not okay, but I believe that mentally, once you change that setup, you have lost the trust in your equipment just because it's not the same.
Mhm.
And from then forward, you will not trust the shooting process, or how so.
Yeah.
And my final question is, you already mentioned that you don't change your equipment from target to field, but do you make any changes for indoor season versus outdoor season?
Nothing drastically, just maybe a weight up down, but that changes. Like today is like that, tomorrow it can be like that on a personal preference, but I just shoot a different model of bow, or for indoors I have a bigger bow, and that's it.
Okay, nice.